Good evening. I'm Karen McDonald. Welcome to our Frequency Fridays, which is very delayed, about 4 days. So I apologize for that. But I have a legitimate, really great excuse. And one of those things we're going to talk a little bit about today. So one of the things that happened to me last week was this. And so we're going to talk a little bit about triaging. We're going to talk a little bit about frequencies. We're going to talk about tuning forks. We're going to talk about coming over stress. And thank you for all of you. Yes, today is my special appearance arrival date. So I could be a blue spectral monkey or in the year of the dragon, or as some people think on the Gregorian calendar here. So I usually don't follow that, but I want to thank you for all your well wishes today, because it's absolutely appreciated and very, very welcome. So thank you very much. And another whatever, round around we go. So anyway, one of the things that's really interesting is that people have very little ideas to what you can be doing in the emergency situation. So for those of you that don't know what happened, I will tell you how this happened. So two big factors. One is I went to one of our local springs up here, and I want to thank all the people and the staff at the Nakusp Hot Springs, because I decided to go out there. I went with one of the girls in the area. It was unknown to me, till we're on our basically way there. As I always check to make sure someone has not been injected. They have not taken those different tests up their nose, up their butt, in their mouth that contain graphene. But what a lot of people still fail to recognize is the importance of who you intercourse with. And a lot of times I'll say, have you been intercoursing? Like, could you possibly be graphinated? And in this case, someone deliberately withheld that information from me. And so it doesn't matter if you are intercoursing with them now or you intercoursed with them from 2020 or, in here, because what's happening, if we all saw 2020, we wouldn't be doing that, because all things are basically transmissible. So depending on what your frequency is, depending what can be transmitted by frequency, you could be picking up and shedding or spreading definitely around those, near to you. So one of the things that happened to me was, one, a little bit of extra hyperthermia, which I probably didn't require, but at the same time came way too close to someone. And within minutes, I started getting a headache. And I'm one of those people that actually bleed around people. If we've gotten touched previously accidentally in the past. So one of the things that definitely is watching your hypothermia and not overdoing it, even though I wasn't in a hot tub for the duration. I was basically in the, medium tub really for basically over an hour. And so what happened in here is that within seconds, I started getting a headache. My head started dropping. And then basically I was starting to go unconscious. So I realized something, I wasn't grounding. There was something wrong, because it feels like you're being energy harvested or being pulled, as people think, almost like out of body experiences. So I made it to the front entrance, went outside to get some fresh air, and promptly, as I sort of bent down, boom, went onto my tailbone, onto the back of my head, and went down and fractured my wrist. Now, one of the worst things ever, right, as I started coming to after about 5 minutes, right, they took me inside. What happened is I promptly, we put some cold water, drank some cold water. I promptly went unconscious again for another 2-3 minutes. So their response was to obviously call 911. So when I came back after a couple more minutes, and almost being unconscious and passed out for basically about 8-10 minutes, is I basically went and said, do not have 911 come here. Do not have an ambulance come, because I said, one, I'm not going to let them touch me. And I told them, I said, I'm very sensitive to anyone that's been injected, and they all have been. So I said, besides, I have better equipment at home. So give me half an hour, 40 minutes. I'll be in my own little, holistic quantum medical center, naturopathic center here. And so that's exactly what I did. So I want people to realize that you can take care of your own health. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I want to thank you guys for joining me. Daria's in and Pablo's in, and it's great to see you guys live too. So like I said, we're going to do a little bit of things differently here. So let's talk about what I did. Okay. So the first thing I usually always carry, and thank gosh I had those air tamers on, because that's really, really important to try and deflect some of the different frequencies. Very important. I did put it on as soon as I got, dressed from the pool. And I have accidentally gone swimming with them. So I do know that they will actually survive. I don't know if the hot tub would do it, but like definitely in the lake it did. Those are very, very important. Another thing is always have something, let's say like copper or a triple strand copper bracelet. So having copper on is not just great enough. You have to actually and should have what's called a triple strand. So it would be one strand through the center like this, and then you would wrap the other one clockwise and the other one counterclockwise. That is what's going to be able to move some of this. So let's just show you what I did in a minute and what I've been doing, not only when I got home from the injury, but what I'm doing 3 times a day, at least. Okay, so this is very, very important because triaging, there are so many things coming up. Today, you guys are probably aware that we've got the KP index is off the charts, the Schulman wave is off the charts, the corneal mass ejections coming off. And this is one of the highest radiation days that we've had in probably 20 some years. So it doesn't matter who you're looking at today, from Schulman Wave by Marguerite. We want to thank her. I was texting with Rex Bear today on his show. Stefan Burns, Johnny Jones, everyone that's talking about geomagnetics is talking about what's going on in the next few days here. So part of it is you got to be really, really well grounded, because like that, when you lose consciousness or you feel unstable, or you can't ground properly, and you would think being in a hot tub, you would be grounded, right? I was drinking fluids. So one of the things too is to make sure you have enough electrolytes in you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about recovery and how I did that. So right now you can see on this wrist, I've got these funny things flashing. That's a far infrared. And it's also a geomagnetic pulsing, like a PEMF, because I am not injected and do not have an overload of graphene that it could trigger onto me. So we're going to show you a little bit of how that is working. And these are fun things that you can put anywhere if you need to. So we're just going to let that pulse over here. What it is it is connected right now. And it's connected into this Genius Biofeedback Rife. And I work with about probably 10 different types of Rife machines or scalar machines or bioresonance machines. And again, they can work off grid. And they do not have to be producing this bad EMF or be hooked up to Wi-Fi. So once you download programs, you can actually generate up to and beyond 20 megahertz. And that's one of the things that's in here, is that the bones resonate at a certain megahertz, usually 40 to 50, megahertz. So those are really important. We're going to talk about herbs, oils, and all those fun things. So I'm just going to shut this off. It will redirect back to that. So one of the first things to do, I'm just going to wrap this. And people go, did you go get a cast? Absolutely not. I will get a splint. I will get a tensor bandage like this well before. I would never cast unless you had to have surgery or had to go in. Now, I chose not to go into the hospital. I chose not to do the x-ray because I was quite aware of what was going on with this. And you can still see there's still a fair amount of bruising after over a week and a half. Okay, in here. So it's very tender, and you can always tell the difference usually between a sprain, a fracture, and a break, because you can definitely tell when it feels not just muscles and the tendons and the ligaments and the fascia, but there's a big, big difference once it hits the bone. You know when you got bone pain. And so those are some of the things you can tell with actually using tuning forks and things like that, or a biofeedback machine. So I'm going to talk a little bit about just really basic Rife today, and go into some real simple things. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. This is your time that you get with me for the next hour or so. And then that way you can ask any questions as I monitor the chat room. So one of the things in here, we're going to talk a little bit about what the essential oils are. And I'm going to just revert over here quickly to one of my favorite books in the world. It's called The Essential Oil Desk Reference. And that essential oil desk reference is really, really important. Because if you don't know where to look, where are you going to go to find the answers? And part of that is knowing where to go to. And if you don't know where to go to, you're in deep trouble. So one of the things I'm going to take you to is this essential oil desk reference. At the very back, it says bones or bone problems. So one of the things can be just, and it's not just having osteoporosis. It literally could be like a broken bone or a fracture like what I am sustaining today. So one of the things that's very, very common, you'll probably see there if you can see well enough, is it says basically we are looking at singles like thyme, helichrysum or helichrysum, potato, wintergreen, peppermint, northern spruce, black spruce. You're going to look at oils that are from the trees. Spruce, fir, pine. Copaya is amazing for pain here as well. Palo Santo, again, another tree. Myrrh, another tree. Lemongrass, ginger, vetiver, all those sort of things. And in here, you can get different blends. And what I did is I made up my own blend with probably about 30 oils. We'll go into that in a minute. But again, wintergreen, peppermint should always be in there. Frankincense, pine, all these sort of things are very, very helpful to use. And that's the reason why here. So whether you got bone pain or you've got basically what you think osteoporosis or low bone density or brittle bones, or you're concerned about that, one of the things is getting the right types of calcium and magnesium and different things along like that. Boron, lack of vitamin D, all those things can become a contributor to what's going on. So those are some things that you can actually up. And the other thing as well, which they talk about down here, and a lot of people, whether you can see it here or not, it says basically essential enzymes and alkaline. One of the things in sulfurzyme. So one of the things I'll just go into is that the reason why is because we want something that takes away the pain. And as you see with a lot of what happened in the last little while, is that people have used a lot of things like serrapeptase and nattokinase to take down. But serrapeptase is a really great anti-inflammatory and a painkiller as well, not just digestive enzyme. So those are going to be some of the things I'm going to use, and I'm going to show you exactly how I addressed it. So as a nurse, I think it's really, really important. So one of the things I have going back here, and I want to also thank Janine Strong. She's one of our local genius therapists as well and does quantum medicine, but she's also a former nurse. Well, we're still nursing, we're just not registered, but we've done a lot of things. So she actually was kind enough to say, you know what, why don't I do what's called a quantum cap? I will do a session for you and I'm going to send it to you. So I've been listening to it all week as well. And so that's another thing you can do is we have the ability to send frequencies or tones, you know, on the internet that you can plug into, whether you've got a phone, iPad, or iTablet, and you can listen to it. And so if you don't have different like electrical, magnetic, or different therapies or, you know, infrared, what you can simply do is use your headphones. And sometimes all you need is a simple headphone like this. And what I've done is I've put it on my knee when I've been broken. But the other thing is if you didn't have stuff, you could actually put your wrist between here or your hand between here for 15, 20 minutes. And that's going to act like a bit of a sound wave, kind of like, you know, binaural beats or, you know, hemisync. What you can do is also put your hand in between here. Or what I'm going to do is put it between a glass of water. So if you don't have the kind of fun equipment we do, you can actually make in here, instead of a homeopathic, is a radionic, or basically what we call electrical pseuticals. So that's where you're restructuring and basically putting the water in a new form that you can assimilate. So if that's not cool enough, let's see what we can do. So one of the things I've been imprinting here, you know, for about 20 minutes are essential oils. And like I talked about, you can do oils singularly, or what I did is I put about 30 oils in here. And so that's one of the things I want to show you is actually to put the essential oils in. And you could even do it to both hands because you're on the same frequency, right? So a lot of times if you can't access the injured appendage, okay, you can do the opposite one. So if you can't reach something, or something, you know, is in a cast or something like that, if you did go that far, you can actually work on the opposite end of the body. So that's one of the first things I do is I put on those essential oils and give it a few minutes just to absorb. Once that's done, how many of you have heard of DSMO? Great sulfur. If you can't do that, one of the things you can do is called MSM, which is another form of sulfur. And so one of the things in here I put was the DSMO, and I've made my own little thing here, a little hard to see, but there's DSMO with some aloe vera and a whole bunch of those essential oils. I've also got 2 creams in here. One is in basically a cannabis balm from Sherry, is in actually Kelowna, Sherry Davidson. And so she is just amazing. And she makes a really great little balm here. And the other thing I've got from the guys in Alberta through the Light Cellar and stuff, that is an Amanita mushroom pain solve. And so I think that's actually a very cool thing to do. So I now have got DSMO. I have also got my aloe vera, my essential oils, and then there's a couple other things we could talk about. One, and I want to thank, because I just saw Sam give me a happy celebration day, but this is actually wild arnica oil. And this is something that I actually got out of a cute little shop when I went to Sam. So it's kind of ironic she's calling right now to wish me a happy arrival date, is actually arnica oil. And this I got out of a little art store, actually, in a place called Bragg Creek, which is south of Calgary. And so a lot of the essential oils I get out of our Banff supplier, which I hear is now moving to Diamond Valley, which will be just above High River. So Tony Nevis is using his oils. The other option is to always put some castor oil. And so one of the things in here is to put a nice, generous dollop here of, again, the castor oil. And I'm going to show you a couple other things we can do. So again, thanks to Sherry at Canna Healing Company. That's out of basically Kelowna. So Healing Canna Balm at gmail.com is Sherry's thing. So if you want, we've got a little bit of the CBD oil here. And I'm going to put a little bit of that on. So a lot of people, if you don't want to do any cannabis or you don't want to have any effects psychedelically or whatever, which I don't, I will put that on topically. Okay, so that's another way to actually put things in. So I've put about, now about 40 different things on here. And so I have no problem doing that. So next thing is to get some really hot, hot wet towels. And in this case, what I do is I go get my gloves, and we get the gloves. And what we do is we're going to get a hot, wet towel. I'm literally going to be wrapping this around here. And then the next thing I'm going to do is put a plastic bag on here. And the reason we want to put a hot plastic bag is because you want to compress it. You want it to stay in there for about 10 minutes. So the thicker the towel you get, this is just a little tea towel, but a lot of times I'll use that just for 5 minutes and wrap it. You get it as hot as you can get it. And it doesn't matter if your knee is sore, your back is sore. This is something all of you guys can use. And then I just wrap it with a plastic bag or whatever you've got. And you sit there for about 5-10 minutes. And that's the idea, is that you want to basically get this being driven into the muscles, the tissues, the joints. And I have broken almost everything in there as well, which has really been helpful. And sharpshooters in the chat room, how are you? 2 tablespoons of DSMO 99% in a glass of apple juice or orange juice. Again, those are things too that are really, really great. So you can drink it as well for the pain, or like I said, we put it directly onto the skin. So you can mix it there. And I've been using DSMO. And so, if you want to get more information, there are some great books on it. Or Dr. Amanda Vollmer is the yummy doctor. She's got a lot of stuff on there. Because, DSMO is amazing on there. And so one of the things, too, is that Paul was mentioning that CBD in Australia is prescription only. Calls them a bunch of pirates. So there are different things in there, like I said, about CBD, and even just getting what you can sometimes get hemp oil. When it first came out, we actually had hemp oil as salad dressing, and so, like I said, that was available on there. So these are one of the things. So I'm going to let this just sit here and rest for a few minutes because it's doing its work. And so while you're doing that, the other thing that's so critical, and one of the first things I ever learned was the essence of what pH is. And pH and pain go hand in hand. Are you guys aware of that? So one of the things is that it's so critical that you get your pH into a state of alkalinity. And that alkalinity should be what? Anyone want to guess in the audience here? Put down what you think should be an optimal level for the urine pH first thing in the morning. Because what we want to do is, once you go into any state of trauma, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, motor vehicle, surgical, your pH will go to a state of hyperacidity, which is usually going to drop. Wrong. Okay, I'm going to tell you why in a minute. A lot of people will guess that 7 is okay as the urine pH. And actually, most of us will say not. We usually want 7.5 to 8. And some people even say a little bit 8.4 temporarily. So right now, the critical thing I've been doing is taking pH, very cute, what we call happy caps, right? And so absolutely not. You'd be dead at basically 5. Okay. So that's a critical thing that we're going to actually teach you guys here today is what is normal. How do you test and how often do you test? A lot of people, you can do a 12-hour or through the day type of thing. To me, that's almost irrelevant. So one of the things is you can get straight litmus paper. Okay. And then another thing is full strips here. Okay. If I want to know everything about myself, that's where you can get these. And these are available on here. So again, what we want to do is look at where the optimal thing is. And I'll show you that in a few minutes. Okay. We want to be, like I said, if you follow Dr. Young temporarily to get your stay in there. And a lot of people are allergic to that bicarb water. Okay. You cannot just say, go take, soda water. I'm sorry, that doesn't work because probably about 20% of the people are allergic to it. So a lot of times when people say, go take, some boron baths or go take this, are you aware you can have people allergic to it or they may have a high load already and you're going to actually overload them. So those are some of the things that you really, really got to be aware of. We thank a lot for, so now what? And Brent's in here and Roger, our philosopher who's gone to sleep. So one of the things in here, like I said, I'm showing you how you can do some trauma stuff right off the bat if you don't do that. And I'm going to show you a very simple Rife machine that's a no-brainer to get. And this can produce up to 20,000 megahertz. So you do not have to pay $2,000 to $3,000, $4,000. There are literally apps that have been developed by military and by the different forces and that are used by that. And they have developed them so that you can put them on an app and you can develop this. And you can actually see on the oscilloscopes what we're doing with what different kind of waves. Okay, so I'm going to show you that because I want it to work with different frequencies. And I've been playing with them, as you can see in the background here. So it's not just a wrist, it's all the acupuncture meridians that are associated in traditional Chinese medicine with that. So it's not just a wrist, it's not just a bone, it's not just a break. This is going to affect everything. Okay, even the emotion. Is it something I don't want to reach out for? Is there something in the future? Or why did I hit my tailbone and have this incredible kundalini thing that whatever knocked me right out for close to 10 minutes? So a lot of that is that fear of rebellion against the authorities. Is it, a new start, a new shakening, a new awakening? Is that my own little internal earthquake trying to do a reset? So those are things you have to take into account for. So one of the things, once this has actually been dissolved into here, and of course when you use hot, wet whatever, hot, wet towels, what will happen is it's not going to be greasy whatsoever. Okay, it's going to absorb in. It's just going to be like a baby's skin. And like I said, I find to do this every 2-3 hours is amazing. Now, one of the things that you can do on here, which is amazing, I don't know if you've ever seen some of these. These are actually like basically TENS machines, and they actually create a little spark. It literally is a little shock to you. So you can go up and down the bones here and create this little shock spark here, which helps open up acupuncture points and meridians. But it also sends a little bit of a shock wave into here. So I can actually put it here and I can feel it radiating outwards. And these are about $30. You can look at them online. There's some that you can use that are actually plugged in. This is not. It's just got its own little shock. I got this in Manitou at the Manitou Spa, which is one of the top spas, or one of those things like the Dead Sea in Saskatchewan there at Watrous. So anyway, those could be very helpful. The other thing is how to use tuning forks. So one of the things that's really important is, as you can see, I have a few. Okay. And so I've been trying different things and just seeing, well, this is great, but what should we all use here? So one of the things is always most people will get is a 128, but you can go in and use as many different frequencies as you like. Okay. They all have a different resonance. And so I have everything in here from 172 to 194 to 132 to 141. So all of these are amazing. So one of the great things about this is that you literally can take like a hockey puck, and I don't advise hitting your knees or anything else on the body, but take it in here I don't know if you guys can hear the difference of that. Okay, so there's this one. Have to use my other hand because I can barely lift it. Sounds like some bees buzzing there. And as we go a little bit, there's the 128. So you can just see it vibrating quite well here, right? So one of the things is here, and I'll just use this because it's easier to see for color, is to actually hit it and actually start putting it on the bones. And I can really tell where it's sore. It's amazing when you can tell the difference between muscle or when you've actually, fractured or broken a bone here as I have. You can feel it actually vibrating right to the bone. And so that I know is actually doing a healing. The other thing too, may look a little weird, but once you do this, you can actually put this above here because these are going to start going through the vagal nerves. Okay, so you can go into different pain points as well. And if this, let's say, wasn't a cast from someone else, basically what we could do is actually go to the opposite hand and just work that as well. So that's another option. So anyway, those are kind of fun things that you can do. Now, one of the things really, really important, okay, and this is as a nurse, and you don't have to be a nurse. It's not brain science. But anyway, one of the things I got was actually an oximeter. And these are pulse oximeters that will give you your heart rate. Because what happened is when I passed out, my heart rate was elevated, way elevated for over 5 minutes. That's why they were concerned. Because again, you don't know if you're going into almost like a pseudo seizure or what's going on. But one of the things is you can get these cute little pulse oximeters, and they actually, within a few minutes, will actually start giving you a reading. Okay, so you can actually start seeing within a few minutes what's going on in here. And again, I know it's hard to see, but the first number up here is 97. Okay, 96, 97. You actually want it close to 98, somewhere in that range. You don't want it really below 95, but you can see it's measuring the pulse, right? So for those people, if you have difficulty, finding things, these are like so inexpensive. They're like about, seriously, on there, you can see the heart rate's up. That's actually, normally it's about 70 some, but right now it's at 80. Okay, so these are very inexpensive. The other thing I went and got, okay, because you should have these. If you need a triage or you need to have a bug out, device or something like that. The other thing you can go is you can get these little blood pressure kits. And these blood pressure kits can actually plug into your computer or into the wall within seconds. And literally all you do is you put the cuff on here and it will blow up within seconds. So these are actually, again, this is a blood pressure monitor. So it will give you your systolic, diastolic, and it will also give you the heart rate. So again, mine was about 120 on 78, which is in the normal range. Because you also want to be careful that when you see people pass out, what happens is I started dropping my head. And as it dropped below the heart level, what you do is you go into what's called orthostatic hypotension. Well, there you go. So if you're already weak, boom, if I put it up there, probably if I would have sat up or just slumped, I would have probably been okay and come to. But because I dropped my head like this, that was it. I just tumbled right forward for about 10 minutes. So these are very easy to get as well. And these are like sometimes $20, $30, $40 just on Amazon. And I'm going by amazon.ca. So anyway, take a look at these. These are really easy things to take a look at. And of course, my next favorite thing, if you don't have, $1,000 to $3,000 to get what's called basically a Tesla or a violet ray, these are actually frequency ones. They're not quite the same, but you can smell the ozone. And this one, you can get either the violet ray or you can get an argon one. And here is what I started doing, is putting it on here for several minutes. And boy, when you run it up and down, you can tell where the pain is. That plasma, as you're going through here, makes a huge difference. And I can really feel where the damage is, because you can feel it's like almost like a TENS machine. So you can turn it up or down as much as you want. And again, these are sold on Amazon as a high frequency wand. And I can smell the ozone coming off here. So if you know about ether and plasma, this is almost like etheric or plasma surgery in a way too. So this is really, really, really helpful. And again, it could be used anywhere you've got damage, and just let it sit on for a few minutes and increase the blood in the circulation. So that's one of the things that I did here. I thought, oh my gosh, it's doing wonders here. And so it's great for facial as well. Okay, so if you want to do that, that is another amazing little tool. One of the other things as well, I have something that is called a neurovisor. And neurovisors, is everyone, if you're following into my Facebook, you're seeing all the stuff I've been putting out about running things at 40 hertz. And what happens is that we're now seeing that a lot of the sound and the light technology at the vibration, again, sound can be converted to light. Okay, it's simple. It's got a color spectrum, all those things, minerals and stuff like that. So doing even something like the neurovisor here, which I'm going to go into for a second here. One of the things that's really cool about the neurovisor is that you can actually run that light. Or in here, like I said, if you want to get into far infrared and stuff like this, this is very cool stuff. So I'm just going to shut this off for a minute. And then that way we will listen and see some of the stuff that's in here. So one of the things I've been running here has been actually my aura, just to see what was happening. And it was really, really affected here. Okay. And when you see an aura, kind of like, I'll bring this up a little bit. Just hold on. And can't really use one hand here. But one of the things you can really see here, if you can you see that it's got a bit of a brown ring around it? You can see the damage here. Okay. And that's right on the outside periphery. So again, anything skin and going into the dermis, you'll see that. And so I've been running this now for about 2 hours, and I just want to see what the change is, because I want to see what the progress is. So what I'm hoping to see is a change in that brown ring, because, oh my gosh, I mean, I know where the damage is, right? That's on the outer periphery going in. It's like inside out, outside in, when you start looking at biofeedback in there. So you can see it's a little bit better, but there's still a lot of red. There's still a lot of, inflammatory conditions in there. So better than it was, but you can see where it wants to work. So one of the things in here, let's say I wanted to put some other light therapy, and a lot of people don't realize you do not have to have neuro or biofeedbacks at your head, at your eyes, or at any level that you're not comfortable with. So in this case, if I went to go into our neurovisor here, there's nothing to say I can't put light therapy on my wrist. And this is where a lot of people, they don't always get it right. So let's say I wanted to go into something here, some athletic, or I wanted to go into relaxing or sleeping or whatever it might be. There are a lot of different things that we can go in here. But let's say I just want to pick one here and go at 40 hertz. We're literally going to go in, and I'm going to look for this little light here and see if we can scan here and find it. And once we've got it, it's ready. Okay, so it's now found this. And what I'm going to do is actually go in here, and I'm going to start playing this particular vibration one. And this one I've set up a playlist to last for an hour and a half, so I could go to bed and not care about anything. So once I have something like this neurovisor, as I said, I do not have to have it on my head. So maybe I want to do some light therapy, but I could also do two different things here. And this is why I like to multitask with this kind of stuff. One is to put the headphones around here, but I could also start then running the light therapy on the same thing here. So not only would I have some nice calm and relaxing, you can also do light therapy. Okay. And like I said, without it having to be on the brain. Okay. We can literally, or close your eyes and I can see all those incredible things. That will still help, right? But I can certainly put it on here. Okay. And this is something that most people totally forget. You've got so many different options, however you want to run it. And it can be sitting here, having a great time running that. So those are one of the things you can do as well for light therapy. It doesn't have to be close. It can be from a distance. Okay. To affect a slight change. That's all you need. You can do it to you. You can do it to the water. You can also do it to the plants. So there's a lot of things, like I said, that can pick up frequencies in many, many different ways. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let me know. So I'm going to let this actually go down here. We're just going to stop that for a minute. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a very simple rife. This is one of the ones I love to use. Again, developed by Ryan Williams at insighthealth Apps. And again, these were developed initially for the space program. It was developed to actually improve children that had Down syndrome. And they were working on chromosomal, or basically what you call not just the optogenetics, but it was actually the epigenetics. It's seeing if we could get the original sound to put the original DNA template, which had been fractured through sound, Wi-Fi, chemicals, and other things. So they were very, very successful in that. That's why you're seeing so much out there right now, in here. So like I said, this is the precursor to people thinking even having some sort of medical beds or scalar beds or electrical magnetics or sound. So these are things that you can use at home. So one of the things I'm going to go into is a simple one called the rife. And this rife, all I have to do is type bones. So how many of you have got sore backs in there? Or do I have a broken bone? Do we have something, going on here? Anything that's got to do with bone or bone diseases will come up. Now, as you can see, there's probably about 20 different things in here, hard to see, about the bone. So all these different things with bone could be bone spurs, bone trauma, and it says we have a fracture of the bone. We also have for broken bones. So let's just put in basically the fractures in here. And bones could be periodontal. It could be lots of different things. Gum disease, all sorts of things. Osteoporosis, anything along that line. So I'm just going to put a few seconds here, and let's just see what you guys notice. I'm going to put 20 seconds on, and I'm just going to hit the play. And this is telling me it wants to run at 5:28. So let's just see what you guys notice. Just close your eyes for a minute. Now, it's very interesting to see what happens when we just run bone or something like that. So this is the simplest type of rife that you can go into that will produce between 1 to 20,000 megahertz. So it's actually quite huge to go into something like that. So if you haven't tried that, one of the things it said is the 528 hertz, but you know what? I may have a 432, or in this case, this is 528. That's the me frequency. So even if I hit it here, again, you can go on the outside perimeter. It kind of loses a little bit of, its juice here. That's why you have, and I could go more so on the outside, is what I would do, is sweeping and bring it out and clear it out. So the injury's in here, so I want to clean it away from the body, and start combing through the actual frequency here. Again, it doesn't hurt to do the other side, right? Because where are your hands? They're at the same level here. It's kind of like the Vitruvian man and Vitruvian woman. So those are some of the things here. I'm also going to play one in here just for pain and for bones again. And one of the coolest ones as well here. And I want to thank Janine because she's actually sent me a Quanta capsule here. And those are really nice to have. That's what we can send as therapists. And, it's kind of nice to have friends in the industry, because she went and sent me a whole bunch of playlists here, probably about 5 of them. So depending on the bone, depending on the pain, depending what we want it to go into, you only get about 7 days use out of these. And you can see it, they all say for me, because she sent them just about a week ago, it's called expiring soon here. So all these things will be expiring, but we'll just give you a hint here. So one we have here, let's just play a few things here. We'll load them up, and we're going to see what you notice and what I notice for a few minutes. So this is, again, the Quanta Cap. And let's just listen to it for a minute. And these are, like I said, really fun things you can do. So if you want to have tones that you can listen to, you can either generate them yourself through any kind of rife device, or in this case, we're going to add all these different items in here. We've got 118 items, and we're literally going to play this. So you notice what you notice. So let's all listen to this for a few minutes and see what you find. So again, designed to work with headphones or basically low radiation or no radiation headphones. I prefer to use the headphones rather than the earbuds. So let's just see what you guys are noticing here. Again, if you feel comfortable, if you don't have headphones, you can put your hand over here. Or in this case, what I could do, can't even lift it, is take a glass of water and put it on here too. And it'll pick it up. I prefer to have headphones around it because it works better. But there we go. So let's just see what happens here. And we'll go from there. So if you close your eyes and take a nice deep breath in through the mouth. And see what we can do here. And tell me what you guys are noticing. You know, like I said, everyone's got a different way of doing things. And that's why I like these kind of things, because you can program them yourselves, right? You're not reliant on someone else or some company, or you don't know what you're doing, because you can program them in yourself here. So one of the things as well is to actually always go into, and like I said, one of my favorite things here is to go into the Genius Biofeedback. And so that's what I've been basically running here, because it makes a huge difference for what is going in. And like I said, on here, there's no substitute for doing what you have available to you. So in here, we'll just listen to the other one here. And I'm going to show you just something again. You can always go in and download them yourselves if you have questions, or have a therapist, whether myself or someone else, as a trainer. But one of the things I wanted to show you that was very, very cool that just came out, and I think it's worth taking a look at, because we're seeing them all over the place right now. And so one of the things here, let's just take a look at this one. This is from Oxford, by the way. Oxford University. This isn't new. This has been going on for a long time, even though it was put out again. But what they're doing is they're talking about the trial that happened here. And this is basically low frequency ultrasound was used to stimulate the brains of patients with severe chemical or, thank gosh, pharmaceutical resistant depression, because I really don't think anyone ever needs a pharmaceutical if you know how to deal with that. So it doesn't matter if they had brain inflammation and what kind of things that had plagued them for years. They started reversing without drugs, without surgery, just with the sound. And this is whether we call neuroplasticity, neuromodulation, that the brain and other organs could be used to heal by frequency of sound alone. So this is, again, Oxford University. And that's exactly what we're doing here. So this shows that those ancient sounds or tones, and again, focusing on the 40 hertz. Like I said, the difference with my biofeedbacks, I can produce anything I want. Okay, so you could plug in 20 hertz, you can plug in 7.83 hertz if you want to get into the Schulman wave. You want to go like yesterday, it was over 100 hertz. Okay, so you can put in anywhere up to 20,000 hertz. But this is one thing that they found here, is that it calmed the inflammation. It actually reopened dormant circuits that basically, because a lot of drugs cannot cross the blood-brain properly. And that's why I like using frankincense, cedarwood, pine. Those essential oils do cedarwood. So what you're doing is you're basically taking those neurons and you're synchronizing the theta, alpha, beta, delta, and gamma waves. So anything that has basically been through post-traumatic stress or toxins or overstimulation, whatever it is, and it's collapsing people into a state of disease. So using these subharmonic frequencies can actually awaken people into a spiritual state of, you know, being elated or bliss. And that's what these ancient chambers were designed to do. They were designed to reset the pineal gland, or what we call the amygdala, or the limbic systems here. So again, they use their sensors. Like I said, you can do it well without there. Okay, so you can do oils and stones, but as I said, where the sound can go is way beyond. So it's a great thing to integrate essential oils crystals is amethyst and other things as well going in here. And as I said, it wasn't just Oxford University. It was the University of Arizona confirmed it too. And I'll tell you, I can go back 25 years ago and longer and show you that. Even this is how DARPA started doing their neuroweaponry, okay? Their idea is to use the Wi-Fi 5678G and up to basically disrupt you. We're going to actually put our own things in at home and basically do a reset. So it can take anywhere from 11 to probably 15 to 20 minutes. Preferably, I would like about half an hour. But anything on here, right? So even using tuning forks, crystal bowls, anything of the solfegial or the Noge, Dr. Paul Noge's tones, can be done on the temple or the crown area. Like I said, you can even use certain tuning forks, 174, 528, 432, but the weighted ones are really great if you've got some of the stuff in here. So if you haven't seen this, this is a very cool study that's I just put out. So anyway, I want to thank you for joining me. If anyone doesn't have any questions, we'll leave it for today. I'm going to go back. I'm going to do this is going to be my third little wrapping so that now I got this all saturated. I want to actually literally go and get that hot towel and put it on today. So those are some different things that might be very helpful for you. And we can use these all for grounding. So you don't have to be injured to use this. So one of the things in here is that all these different things and frequencies can be used for you in whatever different way you do. So I really want to thank people for looking at that. Now, you've got a question there, so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So one of the things in here, this is going insane right now. And I'm just before I take you to what we're going to show you here, let's take a look at what's really going on in the environment, because you're going to need this for so much grounding. It's not even funny. So I'm going to share the screen. If you're not on my inner circle, I'm going to show you where this is. So one of the things I want to thank Marguerite in here, and Marguerite is a friend of mine. She's got a great thing called Schulman Resonance Updates with her that she does every day. And this just came in 39 minutes ago. So the KP is at 9. Okay, it's not at 2. It's not at 3. It's at 9, you guys. It's now coming in at over 2 million miles per hour. Okay, the solar winds are insane. And there are 30 some states now. There was 23 this afternoon that are actually warning about blackouts. So if you're in lower part of, as you call the fictitious border of Canada, you might want to take a look at it. So this is huge. You can see where the KP index is right now. So it's a great thing to make sure that you have got things into perspective here. So this is off my group here. So you've got a question. I will answer that. And your question is about, what about the tuning forks? So I'm taking you to my albums. Anything you want to know, Pole Shift, Clan Mother, Tribes, Sovereign Law, Savage Law, 40 Hertz. There's a thing about tuning forks and all that sort of thing in here too. Acupressure, all sorts of things. Enemas, colonics, whatever you think you might want to know about, it's probably in here. And we'll go through a little bit of my Rife V steams for men and women. Tuning forks again. I've got several different ones on here. So if we just go and you ask what is the question or you want to know about tuning forks, let's just look at this. How to use it to help and reduce stress in the vagal nervous system. Okay, where to start with, how to do sound healing, how to do it yourself without paying $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 and going to someone's class. Because you know what? If you actually go spend probably less than 20, 30 hours or a couple of days or whatever, a couple hours a week, and go study this, what I've got in here, I've got close to 90, and between the other one, probably about 200 different sites for you to go look at. Okay, so be diligent, do your self-studies because it's all here. When you're asking about what are some of the best frequencies to use, technically all of them. The lower the frequency, the lower you're working on the physical aspects of the lower hertz in here. So any of these things, when you're talking about any kind of generator, and a generator, you could generate sound through what? Tuning fork crystals, anything, drumming, all those sort of things in there. And again, going into getting those frequencies. So we're going to go into the lower ones in here. So the lower the frequency, the lower you're working on the spectrum here. Okay, so, and that should have 3 strands instead of 2, but in here. So again, we're going to go into those lower frequencies, and remember this correlates still to light, and you may not be able to see it. So as I said, you can use the tuning forks of whatever you want, and you can get them. You can just look at the different ones here. So one of the things we're going into is getting into the root chakras and getting to low hertz. Okay, so there are some of the weighted ones here. Okay, so going into a lot of the stuff like 128 we'll talk about, but you can see there's the solar plexus. There's stuff that go from 126. There's some even down to 50, 60 hertz you can get. So I find the best thing is to actually go in, and a simple one, you can get a lot of kits sometimes with the 128, what they call an auto or the ohm frequency. And you can get essential oils, whether you want to do Valor yourself or whatever, but you can use a combination of the forks and the oils are probably the best things that you can go into. So whether you've got headaches or you've got any kind of pain anywhere, like I said, you can work it with oils, with crystals, with biofeedbacks. A lot of these, like I said, they will work. And if you don't have, like I said, magnetics or accessories, you simply use your headphones, or you put headphones around a glass of water. I have done a great video called Extended Biofeedback or Biofield Healing. And this is on Odyssey, and you will find this at a thing called Solana 0156. So there's been one done in 2024 and in 25, by the way. So a lot of things, like I said, you can go into biofeedback, and you want to get into those lower hertz. So the lower we can get, the lower you're going to see the frequencies. And as I said, it's not just my right wrist. Let's take a look what that's affecting. It's affecting basically what? You've got the heart meridian, the pericardium meridian, the lung meridian. All those things are also being affected. So just like when you're working with dental issues or iridology, same thing in here. So we want to get down into those frequencies. Okay, so a lot of these things are in here, and we want to be able to establish a sense of resonance, of peace and harmony. So if you look at here and we go into those lower things in here, look at what you're also dealing with. Again, once you drop into the low megahertz, that's where a lot of the negative emotions are. So again, you could be working something out through childhood or through genetics or something in there. Like I said, there can be emotional patterns people are unaware of. So you could be working on many different areas as well. So like I said, we need to be increasing the megahertz, the frequency. So you are very much got to be very cognizant of what you are working. So like I said, it can be biofeedback, neurobiofeedback, all sorts of things in here. This has been going on before we had, all sorts of things. And again, to avoid anything that's of smart technology. So I don't have a smart thing in here. So again, tobacco leaves were used. I could make tinctures also for homeopathic. So any of these things could be worked, and you can use live blood cell. These are some things I'll just bring to your attention too, is that there are natural patches other than pharmaceutical patches, you guys. So take a look at what you've got out here. There's also clean borax as opposed to taking mule team. Okay, a lot of things, like I said, have come a long way, but there's a whole bunch of stuff if you want a little bit more in deep or esoteric or that type of thing. I've done a very cool set of, over a dozen different YouTubes. Not at all, but this one is stuff that's not YouTube friendly. It's with Michelle Martin, and it's at BitChute, and it's called Quantum Chit Chat. So if you take a look at there, you'll see a lot of the different ones that I've actually taught over the years here. So there's a lot of stuff. So if you like to see a little bit more in-depth stuff that we can't discuss, that's another place to go to. So again, knowing where the reflexes are, where these things are, what you can use, anything that's therapeutic, organic, or edible you can use. And again, whether it's herbs, oils, crystals, all the above, these are all things that can be frequency done, or I can put my wrist through these and change that, or change the entire frequency of the entire oils that we're doing. And that's what we want to do. Like I said, everything I do is measurable. Very easy to look at on oscilloscopes or any other type that can measure volts and amp and resistance. So that's the idea, is to move us from a state of disharmony and move it into a state where all the different energy and light is going through. So that's where I'm going to be looking through. So there's an example you can see of actually when, a wrist is hurt or something on the side, you will see a line come through as well, the energy, or some sort of dark energy, dense energy blocked because the light's not flowing through as well as it could be. So those are some of the very, critical and essential things that you can look at. And so that's a great place, I think, to start for people when they, haven't looked at the very basics of what we can find here. So those are very easy to find on my albums. And a lot of things too, like I said, if you want to move into the different essential oils and the frequencies of where you're moving, these are a great place to work and to start with, because I think that's the basics that a lot of people are scared. They don't know where to start here. And we want to be really, really well grounded, because like I said, it doesn't take much to establish disharmony right now. And especially right now with the different frequencies, a lot of people are having fifth, sixth, and seventh chakra stuff. They're having head, ears, eyes, not sleeping properly, a lot of disruption at night. You know, I'm no different than that. So one of the things in here too, and we'll just show you an update. So Michael is an amazing man. If you haven't gone up to some of his stuff, which I usually put up on my things all the time, but Michael Bradbury is actually known as Mr. MBB333 on YouTube, also on Twitter, X, and on my Facebook. As you can see, what is happening through the areas right now, we are getting slammed with these magnetic shields. So these are all the different things I'm trying to show you, from the alkalinity to whatever it might be, to get into that state of getting balanced, because you're going to need to know this. This is not about, I was on a show in the chat room, and it was Danny Henderson with Mary Beaver today, which I put up. And one of the things, like I said, it's about knowing what you can do at home. And when the girl said, well, we need to set up all these, like, you know, natural healing centers. No, you need to have one in your own home. You shouldn't have to go out for most of this. There's a few other things that, yes, we may have, but one of the other things as well that a lot of people don't realize is that that's why I'm showing you how to do this. I've worked on bands and reserves and stuff like this. And one of the things that's in here is to actually look at some of the different frequencies. And these are some of the different things that people can actually go in and actually get. These are magnetic pads that can go into far infrared. And that's another thing I could be doing here, you guys, is if I wanted to, is wrap my hand in these. That's why these are really nice to have that are flexible. Because in here, like I said, you can get these and they could be so helpful to people. And you could actually even just doing this as a minor massage or vibration. So even if I wanted to give it a bit of a vibration, you could run this. Now, this is a pad that goes with the infrared, and it goes at basically, you set it for whatever timer you want. It goes from 850 to the 660 to all the above. And so these are one of the things as well. Like I said, you might want to take a look at, you know, like I said, they do not have to be expensive ones. And yes, you can have expensive ones, but there are some that work just as well. You can get even a near infrared light that they use to heat up basically for chickens or for, you know, rooms and stuff like that. They will work just as well, that are an incandescent rather than an LED. So these are really simple things that people can look at here, because a lot of people are getting really, really ill, okay, on there. So I, you know, think that it's so, so important that people are aware of the environment. You are aware of what's going on. And I know a lot of people will go, is this like negative stuff and everything else? This is common sense. And if you don't realize what's going on with the geomagnetic, you know, issues going, then you need to wonder why that you have an aversion to certain things like this. So this is something that, like I said, you may want to take a look at and, you know, revamp your thinking, revamp what you can be looking at. Okay, explore different alternatives. Why are people talking about it? And like I said, when we just looked at that map, not everyone is going to experience the same things. And that's why they're warning tonight in 23, and I think it's more than 30 states now, is that you could be experiencing even radio blackouts. And so this is something that people need to be aware of. You know, when you're starting to look at stuff that, like I said, you know, at 1,047 kilometers at the solar speed, there's stuff coming in here. And also when you anticipate corneal mass ejections, they could be coming in a lot quicker. So like I said, you need to see what's available, keep stuff in here. And it's all nice to have the toys, but it's not necessary. And it's all sorts of things that we can present you with ideas, because maybe that's something that you want to be aware of. I love to have the toys and stuff like that. And so one of the things in here, I think that's really, really important is that when you take a look at what we have available, let's take a look at this. You can get little copper things. This is nice, but when you start looking at a multi-wave oscillator or an MWO, that is actually not that different. You see what I've got here? You can barely lift it. Okay, so this is a multi-wave oscillator. Did you know I could have 2 of these for under a couple $100? And I run my Genius. That's what my oils and everything else are sitting on. I have many multi-wave oscillators, okay, depending on what kind of frequency, sacred geometry. I could have small ones. I even have large ones here that are actually around. And so those are things that you can do once you know kind of how to improvise a bit, or what you have available for your pocketbook, right? Not everyone has $5, $10, $20, $30,000 to kick around. What I'm showing you is things maybe, something you can use in the interim for a lot cheaper, that like that one I just showed you, I can get literally for under a couple $100. Okay. And I can get some under $100 as well. But those are things that I can set up and actually sit in between and have one on each side of me. That's not that difficult a thing to put together. So you have a question here. Pablo says, love your work. And no, so what? QB says, you've given me so much good info. If budget is tight, what's the best thing to start with? Says Kirsten. So one of the things, like I said, you start with alkalinity. No one can heal if you're totally acidic or hyperacidic. Every EMF, every 5G, 6G, everything they're hitting you guys with is to make you into hyperacidic so they can loose off or drain your battery. In other words, drain that biofield. So first thing to contain is, as I said, you start learning about alkalinity and you find out what you're at. I am so tired of my clients telling me, oh, I'm alkaline. Why? Why do you think you're alkaline? Well, what are you? I don't know. Well, why do you think you're alkaline? Well, I take half a teaspoon to a teaspoon of baking soda. Well, maybe you're at half a dose and it's not doing a damn thing. I had a client just tell me she was putting a teaspoon in her coffee. I said, that doesn't make you alkaline. It really doesn't. You're barely even balancing it. So again, until you can actually prove it to yourself or prove it to me, this sits in my bathroom. It has always sat in my clinics. Always I give clients home because they just don't seem to know. And that is the first thing you start with, is alkalinity. The other is you get a damn great set or a kit or a whole bunch of things. I'll tell you that there's Navessence oils up here. There's Key Aroma Shop up here. Down the States, you can go into even things like New Directions. You can certainly go into Amazon and get a kit. You should have at least, I would say minimum 1 to 2, even not 3 to 4 dozen essential oils. Oregano, thyme, clove, lavender, all those things are so, so important. Lemon, peppermint, those are much more powerful. I would rather have 1 bottle of essential oils than I would a whole entire, suitcase full of like herbs, because you have to know that these are the potency of the herbs. This is worth more than anything else in here. Castor oil is great, things like that. Those are your basic things. If you're going to have a couple tuning forks, as I said, you can get the 432, 528, but definitely, I don't even think I can lift that anymore, is that basically is to go in and get those tuning forks that are weighted. Very, very, very important. And like I said, a lot of people are allergic to that bicarb water. You can't do it, so then you have to use another methodology, but you have to know what you are. Okay. And I challenge all my clients to be self-responsible, to be self-accountable. How are you going to be sovereign if you can't have your own home? You should have at least 1 room or 1 couch or something, or some corner dedicated to your healing. Right now, because I couldn't move for about a week, and I sat in this chair on a recliner on my amethyst bed, I would doctor or nurse myself up, and I'd sleep for 6 hours and get up for 2. And then to go back to sleep for 6-8 hours. And this is how I went for almost the first week, because there was so much trauma I needed to sleep. Even last night, I slept through my Frequency Fridays because I'm not setting alarm clocks. And then the other thing yesterday, like I said, I went to bed at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I woke up at 5:30 this morning and then ended up talking to Tony Pantalesco on a Discord group for 2 hours. But that's fine. We caught up, right? because he wanted to know too. He says, how are your clients? What are they experiencing? We talk all over. There is a whole group of us that network, and we are telling people what we're finding in our areas, because not sleeping, the insomnia in my area. I've had a couple of reports of the bright blue sky going at 2 a.m, as bright as day, just like boom, you had like a, solar flash. These blue flashes have been occurring here. We had fog. I've had 2 days of blue sky in 6 weeks. Imagine how that does it. So in here, I actually have a vitamin D full spectrum light. Okay, because a lot of times even the vitamin Ds aren't absorbable. So those are kind of the things here. And Pablo's got a question. Am I going to boom a show soon? No, I'm not. So anyway, on here. So these are some of the things on here. And I don't think I've listened to Boom a Show for actually a month or two. Anyway, so in here, this is different things that we want to go in, and we want to take a look and being self-responsible. Like I said, that couch became a futon, became my bed for the last 2 weeks here, because I have a whole table here. This is my healing center. Everything, because, I can't get up and I can barely do dishes and I can barely get that going. So really, really important. Like I said, you have the different things here to be able to take care of yourself. Like I said, if you can't splint it, I don't like doing casts myself because you can't access the injured area. But what you can do is you can get splints and open air things rather than casts. And again, just putting on a tensor bandage is enough to sometimes give you that stability. And I would rather have this on than a cast any day. Okay. And so that's something that will give you a little bit more stability. And like I said, it smells really nice. All it smells like is wintergreen and fir. And it smells like the forest here, or a whole bunch of Lifesaver. So again, really cool things, on there. And Brent goes, happy born day. Thank you. My special appearance today. Again, trauma shows up in so many different ways, right? And also one of the things you can do, the less you eat, the better it is. So whether you go to Master Cleanser or what I did, especially the first couple of days, I know I want all the energy going into healing. I don't want my 70% of my energy or 80% of my energy going into the digestive system to digest a salad or anything. So what I did is I used miso soap. Okay. And I took, different things like that. Herbs, nourishing teas. Herbal teas are nourishing, you guys. Master Cleanser, juicing. When I went out finally and got some groceries, I got a whole bunch of things like celery and carrots and apples and ginger, because you want to have those nourishing foods to help go in here, right? And help re-solidify where you need that energy to go. Like I said, you don't need 80-90% of your, people want to feed you in the hospital. That's why, they keep you forever there. But these are the most things. So I don't know if that helps you a little bit about Kirsten, but when the budget is tight, and I know what that's like, I've also helped on bands and on reserves and with all the First Nations. It doesn't matter if you're poor white tribes or red poor tribes, black white tribes or yellow poor, tribes. The thing is to have the basics here. Like I said, if you get one tuning fork or you get a little bottle of castor oil, like I said, do you have to get a big one here and get 20 ounces or 8 ounces? Absolutely not. Okay. And one of the things too, like I said, do you have to go get a huge bottle of essential oils? Absolutely not. Go get a little 5 ml. Okay. A lot of the places I gave you, like Key Aroma and New Directions and stuff like that, you can ask for 5 ml bottles. You don't have to have the big 30 or 50 or 100. Okay. And a lot of these things are overpriced. But like I said, those particular ones at Key Aroma, shop up here, or New Directions, you can literally go in and just get 5 mils of everything. So you're paying like $5-6, right? As opposed to paying $20-30 a bottle. So that's part of the reason I do that. Or you look at the kits that are available. And one of the things as well, like I said, this is the basics where you need to start off. I think everyone should have urinalysis strips. Absolutely. Because you can tell if there's blood, urine, glucose, ketones, whatever. I don't need to go to the hospital. And when I have something, let's say, like a biofeedback, like the Genius, energetically, I can do virtually any test in the hospital that they can do. Okay. Again, you're tapping into the energetic, into the ether. right? Which is the information. That's where the information is. It's not inside the body. It's in the biofield that you have to access. And that's how you access it. It's through the microsound radio waves or ultrasonic of a biofeedback machine. So like I said, there are a lot of ways to access information, right? And when you do biofeedback, it's like stepping on a scale or putting on your own mood ring. You are energetically using your own voice as a soundboard. And from there, we can extrapolate different herbs, oils, or what's the best combination of things I could be using. You know, like I said, a lot of things. Do I need, you know, something that's an anti-inflammatory sort of thing? So I hope that kind of like gets you into the mood where we're going. I have one I'll leave you with, which I think is important. I tried to put things in as simple as I could for people here. And one of the things I have is it's called Heal Yourself 101. And one of the things I want to also bring to your attention, I love in there, and I put one of the books by basically Marcus Rothkrantz. And Marcus is just amazing. He put an excellent PDF together for people. And I think it's something imperative that people should look at because it's got a lot of things in there for free. And I'm all about accessing free. Okay. And this is stuff that you should be having to download. I've got lots of things downloaded for if the grid goes down or what you need or how to clean water and stuff like that. You know, it doesn't hurt to have that every once in a while. You know, the other thing too is keeping the colon as clean as you can. But I know you guys know what a facial steam is, right? It's pretty simple to access something like that. So on a facial steam, basically what can happen is that you can steam your wrist or anything that's broken. So like a yoni steam, those are different things there. So Kirsten started talking about taking turmeric. So turmeric can be huge. It works better when it's combined with things like black pepper, by the way. Okay, so turmeric is all great. You can use it in powder form. A lot of people are using it with ginger, black pepper, and turmeric because what they do is they'll potentiate each other. The other thing maybe you not be aware of, but let's say something like at Key Aroma Shop, you can get turmeric essential oil. So I have turmeric essential oil, which is more powerful than your powder, by the way, because it's multiply basically distilled. So it's quite potentially in there. So one of the things in here, let's say instead of doing this, and you could do it over a bowl, but like a facial steam, you can use any kind of a steam. So like I said, it could be a sitz bath. It could be something with a hot plate or just doing a facial. Again, that's something that I want to put in there because I want to put the herbs, the oils on it, and I want the steam to penetrate in, which is the same idea of putting a compress. Okay, so there are a lot of different things in here. A lot of people don't realize that if you have that biofilm in here, you are not going to be actually healing that well. Okay, and that becomes a problem. Okay, is that this biofilm will impede where you are. And a lot of people don't realize, let's say I want to get up into where the basically heart is. And where's the heart? It says here up by the gallbladder. If you can see at the top, underneath it says the heart. Where's my hands coming off of? The heart chakra. It's about the same level. So any kind of biofilm will actually affect that. Okay, calcium deficiency. All those different minerals and vitamins, any deficiency, if your colon is not pristine and clean, you are malabsorbing. And that is the most important thing you can be doing. That's why even for something like a bone breaker, you want to speed the healing, you could be doing nourishing herbal tea enemas. Okay, most people don't even think along that line, but I've always done that to speed up everyone's healing. Okay, and you may not have a really cool little like machine like I do up in the corner, but what you may have is an enema bag. Okay, so a lot of these things could be really helpful to speed up your healing. And there's a huge thing, like I said, I just showed you in the colon, where if I wanted to fix my poor little wrist to help it, okay, you will see a change actually in the iridology, in the face, right? The stress shows up in all sorts of things. So like I said, you can do all sorts of essential oils. If you need to keep your brain calm, this is a great one as well. Like I said, all sorts of essential oils can be used in many, many, many different forms. And very important to keep salt and electrolytes up, you know, doing salt waters, doing essential oils topically or again internally. Okay, so lots of different ways to take them here. I've got like 24 different ways. In case you don't know, I can tell you a lot more. But this is one of the simple things to do. And I just showed you one of the books I just gave you was that essential oil desk reference. And I just showed you can actually put PDF and you can get that online here. So again, the emotional component we're going to deal with, and the mental and the etheric and all those different levels. Like I said, you can run any of these different frequencies into each area together or in those acupuncture meridians. Very, very important to look at this. And this is simply just a computerized version, right? It's like ultrasound. So these are very important things. And like I said, you can look at these things if you need to, increase something like that. Lots of different places you can go. So I want you to take a look at this album if you haven't. And one of the things I talked about here is, again, the importance of knowing where the pH is to be. Okay, so you want to stay in that state of slightly being alkaline or alkalosis. Okay, so like I said, this is not for everyone, but it can be really, really helpful. I said lots of different ways you can do it. This over time, this helps, but just taking a lemon is not going to do it, guys. It simply won't. Helpful, but again, it's not the be all and the end all. So those are things that, again, you need to take a look at. And the more you can actually clean out, the better it is. And that's why I like taking a look at this, because even taking a look at where is my wrist connected to, okay? Look at where it comes off. As we go into here, forearms, hands, wrists, fingers is the T1. Again, right at the level where basically the bra strap is, right? Anything to do with arm and hand pain, that's why I'm going to go for the different tuning forks. The song of the spine, or run the biofeedbacks into that area. So even running them into the back or running essential oils on the back, right in those areas will help. Okay, this is the simple things, again, is the reflexology of those points. Okay, it never hurts to go in there. And this is what we're trying to do, is use those sound waves, the volts, the amps, and the resistance to go in there. Very, very critical. And like I said, if you don't want to run them into you, put your favorite crystal or your crystal in water, or your water on some of these multi-wave oscillator plates. And again, they hook into what we're doing, because what we're trying to do is when there's been a disruption in the biofield, we want to actually get that repaired. So as I said, you can do all the tuning forks you want, but very few of them will go up into that hertz. You usually see 528, 428, but you need very specific ones to go in. Like I said, there's a different frequency for the bones, each meridian. Being careful who you're around or how close you're touching. So you don't even have to touch someone to be able to have it pick up and sit in your biofield. This is the misnomer people think, is it's all about touch. That's why they said 6 feet apart. It's probably a great thing to take into there. So these are some of the different options. Like I said, things are being noticeable. And one of the things I've kept on me the whole time has been an electrical magnetic negative ion purifier. So this also helps radiate and keep an energy biofield around me. So like I said, if you don't know simple things, these are simple charts. You can welcome to take them down, screenshot them, or do whatever you want. Okay, like I said, all these things are designed. These are basically critical, what you should have some version of these at home. And I don't care if you don't have a $10,000 machine. You can use a 3 or 5 gallon bucket and do just something like a wood version of these. Like I said, you don't have to have the $10,000, $20,000 equipment that we do. These other things I show you are very effective as well. Like I said, and most people always overlook. That's why I said the enemas and the suppositories, these were used for pain. All nurses knew how to give medications rectally, especially ask them in a nursing home, because this is actually more effective than just giving things orally. So again, you can do things for pain and make up your own herbal suppositories there as well. So like I said, don't hesitate to look at some of these things. I've got a lot of, different ideas for people, and different waveforms. And one of the things you asked me again is, what are the frequencies to get in there? Okay, we're getting into that biofield. We're getting in there and healing. Okay, very, very important. So these are some of the very critical charts that I made up, not only for my teaching, but for you to take a look at. So hopefully these are some really helpful things. Like I said, if I want to isolate the bone or the T1 today or whatever I want to do, or use those different tuning forks, you can see how they can go into each area, right? But it doesn't matter. You don't have to have one. Even if I had one that isn't, again, sanctioned or, for that one specifically, they all help. Okay, as I said, we looked at the T1, and what does it say? 130.81 and 125.43. So if you've got anything even close, hey, something is better than nothing. So I never say that you have to. Nothing is written in stone. I've done a lot of things with people that have been sick, or their animals have been sick, or their dogs are dying, or their cats are dying, and we used whatever we had on hand, and guess what? It worked. So something, and especially oils, have a way of knowing what to do. They've got 200 components. Whether you're too high, they're too low, they act as a dual directional or adaptogenic. And that's what most people seem to forget. So again, wanting to go into these again, colors, foods, frequencies, they're all in here. So like I said, there's a huge amount of frequencies. Like I said, it's a whole different thing, but this is why I like looking at some of these very simple things that I showed you. And a lot of these are only a couple $100, not like this one. This is my $50,000 investment, by the way. So as I said, you can look at some of these very simple ones that you can download off an iPad, a phone, or a tablet that are under a couple $100. Like seriously. So those might be something that you want to get in there. So one of the things as well is just to take a look at that. So I'm going to let you have a wonderful evening. Thank you for joining me again. I'm Karenann McDonald, and have a beautiful, beautiful day. And let's get grounded.